So if I come to you with a 350 credit score and I'm currently self-employed, recently filed bankruptcy and divorced and I pay child support, you're not going to tell me no? You're going to tell me how?
I am going to tell you how. We're going to go over an entire credit report analysis. I'm more than likely going to put you in credit repair, but I'll go over the main meats and potatoes. We do have access to programs where we can do, what if simulators. What if we paid this down? What if we did this? We're also going to go over the seasoning requirements. Just because you've had a bankruptcy does not mean that you're not going to be able to be in a position to purchase.
We are back for another loan officer spotlight, and today I get the pleasure of interviewing someone who I know fairly well, I would say. We go way back and lots of stories that we can bore you with, and we probably won't. So let me just introduce this shining light of a human being, a Hope Votaw-Krugh. Welcome to the Possibility Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy and honored to be here.
So let's start with the let's tell your story. Let's the people know about you. I'm going to describe you later on as, a bulldog and as you self-proscribe tenacious, but there is a personal sweet mother and, kind of a nerdy human being behind the scenes, and I want to know more about that, and I think other humans want to know more about that. So tell us about who the hell you are and what brought you into the business and what kind of makes you tick on a personal level.
Absolutely. So I got into banking whenever I was a senior in high school and thought that would be more of a stepping stone. And I would go to law school and become a lawyer because the Dred Scott mock trial in fourth grade inspired me. And I do love to argue and I'm a little charismatic, so it's a good fit. And instead, after working in banking, when I bought my first house, the loan officer recruited me, and that is how I met you. And you gave me my first chance in mortgages back in 2016. So I was moved to mortgages in 2016 because some guy took a chance on me reluctantly. And I've just fallen in love with finance, as dorky as that sounds, but I love the numbers. I love geeking out over it. And that's kind of my jam, including taking math quizzes on the weekend instead of going out like most normal people my age do and having fun and having a good time. I'm taking online math quizzes. So banking is in my blood, numbers is in my blood, as well as a couple of old lady habits, but not everybody, not everybody likes that style.
So you mentioned that you got into banking right out of high or a senior in high school. So that was like what 3 years ago?
I'm just a baby. I'm just a baby.
That's that's actually not an uncommon shift to
Mhm.
go from banking to mortgage, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's within that bank, and then from that bank to more of a lender or something like that, correspondent. So you made that shift, and here you are today. Now we'll get more back to that. We'll get back to that later. But you mentioned it yourself. You have some old lady tendencies, but you're not an old lady. So tell us about that.
Yes. So I do things that again typically most people my age don't. Well, I love reading. I'm obsessed with reading. I'll go on book benders where usually if I finish one like 350 page book in one night, I'll read two more that weekend and then take a break for a couple weeks. I belong to 5 different book clubs. So I can feel my
Awesome.
street credit just amping up right now. And
Your
also
street your
I
street book credit.
my street book. Yes, I do think I single-handedly funded the west wing of the local St. Louis County Library with all of my late fees, however. So, always contributing to society. I'm thoughtful like that. And I love collecting stamps. I have a tin full of buttons. And I also just love baking and cooking. I think that's my love language is cooking for people, bringing realtors gifts and like my coworkers, like that's my love language is let me cook for you. I would say I cook probably 5 out of 7 nights a week, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm not a meal prepper in the sense that we have really intense, probably you at different points are more athletic people will meal prep to a T all of these healthy meals. I might cook casseroles in advance just because it's easy. I'm a big fan of the crock pot, but on the weekends, before the sourdough bread got into this big fad, I was making the homemade bread, not using a bread machine or even a kitchenette, using my hands. And again, it's just a labor of love. If a house smells good like food, then that's a happy home to me.
Do you still do the bread, or because it got popular, you stopped making it?
I begrudgingly will still do the bread. Like I can't even post about this because it's going to look like I'm riding some fad train, but I've been making homemade bread for years.
You should. You should not let that be a limiting belief. That just because it's a fad, I shouldn't do it. And by the way, and we're not going to go down that path, but anybody listening to this already knows what my MO is. And you've already mentioned two very strong potential content pillars for you. But I'll set that aside for another day. Now, you also mentioned these old lady hobbies.
Yeah.
Tell us about a couple of them.
I have loved crafting since I was a kid. When most kids went on the toy aisle, I was down the supply aisle and I was down the craft aisle. I have been cross stitching since I was 7 and would go with my mom to work in the back room, and I wouldn't even need any examples to go off of. They look terrible, but the love was there and the effort was there. Whether it's cross stitching, it's crocheting, it's sewing. I always do a Christmas craft each year. So I have sewn really fancy 50s aprons. I've made candles. We do the charm bracelets. I I love any it's scrapbooking. That was pretty big until probably 2005. Obsessed scrapbooker. Had my own scrapbooking room. And now I've moved on more to the embroidering, except it's like funny. Like it's more funny, progressive things that women say. They're not always appropriate, but they're hilarious because they're these big, bold statements on these cute little like cross-stitching patterns you can hang out.
I love it. I mean, I would totally make fun of you if I saw you doing it, in a fun and a loving way. But that is unique, and like your fascination with stamps.
I love them. And it's not just the single ones. When you know a new one's going to come out, and the post offices around here know me. And I don't think they know me like, oh, we're so excited to see her. I think we're going to have to get in the safe again because Hope's here and she's going to want the new book of stamps, which is true. And they're always forever stamps. And I have, I won't grab it, but I have, you could probably reach it really easily. But I have a really nice binder, and then they have the sleeves inside. So I'll take this sheets of stamps, and they're all different kinds. It got started whenever I saw a book of stamps with John Lennon on there, and I thought it was just so cool, and it was cool. And that just sparked this love of.
And now you're a collector.
And now I'm thousands of dollars in debt just from stamps. But I'll tell you what, if people ever stop with the tech and they go back to old school mailing, I am going to be rich.
I'm gonna go ahead and be the first to tell you that that's never going to happen.
Well, if it does,
It's gonna get a lot worse in our lifetime before actually nothing changes. There's nothing that's ever going to change. It's only going to get worse, or better, depending on which way perspective you look at it. So, all fascinating stuff that I bet you not a lot of people who think they know you know.
correct.
And which leads us back to what you do for a living. And I mentioned I would describe you, if you were an animal, you would definitely qualify as an English bulldog. I know this because I have one. You are, as I mentioned, tenacious is a proper word, and I think any borrower or real estate agent that works with you would appreciate that trait. But as I mentioned to you off air, I think any LO is going to describe themselves as such. And so I'm going to give you a chance to describe what that means to you, to them, and then I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay. So one of my mottos that I've been saying for years is don't tell me no, tell me how. And that is what I use in my personal life, professional life. And it's so powerful and so important because it gets just the idea of no as just, it's not even on the table. And so in this world, the banking world, the mortgage world, we know we have so many guidelines to follow. There's so many rules and laws protecting buyers and borrowers, and that's wonderful. However, this does present a series of hurdles sometimes consistently. And just knowing that I know how to annoy all of the right people to get the answer that I need. I have partnered with enough brokers, enough powerful people in the industry who are more educated than I am, where I can go to them and find a workaround. That's incredibly important because when we look at deals we've taken over, so rescue deals, other lenders couldn't get them closed, we're able to close them. It's not just because we have access to the programs, it's because you have that attitude and confidence that I can get this done. So for example, I have a client now who is self-employed, so we utilize typically in a qualified mortgage income from your tax returns. His tax returns were not aligning with what he was really making each month. So we can use the bank statements in a non-qualified mortgage scenario or a brokered loan scenario. And the bank he was trying to go through, a local small bank, said, like, we can't touch this. This is absolutely not going to happen. Well, we're doing over a $500,000 loan to be able to pull out equity that he can inject into another business and just continue to grow himself as an investor. And that is a huge success story because we have just made something that was not possible in other areas possible. And that's just so much value that we can bring. It's as a company, and then of course, me specifically, I'm going to toot my own horn because I knew we could do it from the jump.
Yeah. Give me your favorite quote again.
Don't tell me no, tell me how.
So if I come to you with a 350 credit score and I'm currently self-employed, recently filed bankruptcy and divorced and I pay child support,
Mhm.
you're not going to tell me no? You're going to tell me how?
I am going to tell you how. We're going to go over an entire credit report analysis. I'm more than likely going to put you in credit repair, but I'll go over the main meats and potatoes. And we do have access to programs where we can do, what if simulators. What if we paid this down? What if we did this? We're also going to go over the seasoning requirements. Just because you've had a bankruptcy does not mean that you're not going to be able to be in a position to purchase. There are many programs where we can look FHA, for example, within a year with qualifying circumstances or 2 years. So it's not the end of the world. So even if we're not in a position to purchase just yet, I'm going to put together an action plan for you where you will be in a position to purchase. So that's looking at income, what we need to be doing, including having a conversation with your CPA. I'm fine with hopping on a conference call and letting that accountant know, hey, we know you want to limit tax exposure, but this is what we typically look at whenever we're calculating income off of our tax returns. And that doesn't scare me one bit. It's a long game. And anyone who looks for instant gratification, so realtors and lenders included, and you look at a client and think they can't be an immediate buyer right now, they're a lost cause, and you
Move
forgive
on.
them,
Yeah.
you're doing it all wrong, because this is how you create those clients for life, those people who you can truly help her. They're always the ones who are the most thankful, and they'll want their family and friends to come to you because you took such good care of them. So stuff like that does not scare me or worry me, because we're going to put together an action plan. I'm going to be pleasantly persistent with you, checking in to make sure that you are actually going off of these action plans, and we're going to get them in a position to purchase.
So does that not make you somewhat concerned or fearful that you would attract garbage? And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anyone,
No,
but at the same token, there are obviously a newbie realtor typically is chasing anything and everything they can. As new loan officers chasing anything, and then you spin your wheels, because I know the opposite side of the argument. A successful
right.
LO is going to say, I have to learn when to say no, so I don't waste weeks when I could have been going after something that is going to be a little bit smoother and seamless.
I understand that side of the argument so well, and I'm typically on it. However, I do think there's not a ton of time and effort to put together that action plan and to just do regular check-ins and follow-ups. And my perspective on that more is planting a seed and watering it, knowing it's going to harvest at one point in time. And again, you're providing value. That realtor can see that value that you're putting in with that client. And it doesn't have to be a quick response. I've had a very, very, what you would consider a higher caliber client as far as assets, income, employment, credit goes. And sometimes those are the time sucks. And I'm not respectful of your time. I'm going to call you at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock. I'm going to bother you on the weekend. And then the moment we're under contract, hey, what's the best rate you can offer me? Because now I'm going to shop you. So I think you definitely have to be very protective of your time. And I think just in experiencing, you recognize pretty quickly which prospective clients are going to be worth that time and which ones are not going to be worth the time suck. And I have had to politely let prospects know that I don't think we're going to be the best fit. Let me refer you to somebody else who I think would be a good fit for you. And that peace of mind is so much richer than the potential commission I could have made with working with them.
It's refreshing. What would you say is your ideal avatar of a real estate agent that you like to work with?
I would say two things right off the bat. I probably shouldn't say this first. First one is, are you a fighter? Are you going to fight for me because I'm going to fight for you? If you want to show a home and whether I have referred this deal to you or you've referred it to me, and we see a client whose mom gets in their ear and says, you should use the bank I used 20 years ago, and you should do this, you should do that. Are you going to be the realtor who's, hey, you know what? It's up to you. You do whatever you want to do. Or are you going to be the fighter where, hey, laying out the facts. Hope's been here since day one. She's gone through all these scenarios with you. I worked with her before. I know that she works really well in tandem with communication, blah, 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 blah. All of that, not to say blah, 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 but et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Because that's incredibly important because who you align yourself with matters and you're only as strong as your weakest link. And lenders, while they can be a dime a dozen, there are more mortgage loan originators out there who don't quite know what they're doing. And if you see a lower rate somewhere, I think it could be potentially cheap. So is your realtor going to fight for you? And then is your realtor, so a realtor fights for you, and then a realtor who is open to be educated. So I think a good way to look at things with asking yourself self-improvement questions is, am I coachable? And then surrounding yourself with people who are coachable as well. Because as you've seen, because you've been in the industry too, I wouldn't say a good portion of our roles, but there are parts of our roles where we're having to go back to the real estate agent and potentially educating on something with the contractor. Why don't we try this or why don't we try that? And are you going to have a realtor who accepts it, is appreciative that you just helped them, or are they going to be really combative and say, like, I'm not going to do that. You didn't know what you were doing about, you overstepped. And having someone who is wanting to grow with you, here's a new program we have, here's a new way that you can help your clients. Are they going to be open and receptive to that? Or are they going to be, this is the way I've always done it. Here's my lane, here's your lane. They can
Yeah.
now overlap, and more of that closed-mindedness. So I have turned away business from realtors or connections where realtors have wanted to work with me because we haven't been a good personality fit. So I don't cast a wide net with real estate agents. I keep it very, 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 very closed by design, because I fight for my realtors and I educate, and I want that reciprocity there as well.
Yeah. A partner.
A true partner, yes.
Yeah. It's a word that is cliche, but also underutilized or under exercised, I should say, that in our industry, because there's so much of this, it's like a pyramid, and the real estate agent it acts like it there at the top. Maybe there is a food chain, but a successful real estate agent is one who understands that everybody a part of that chain is an integral part to making the systems go, and you can't treat somebody like they're beneath you, and it's a partnership. I love that. Yep. All right. So, is there a best way to connect with you? Is there a best way to stay in close contact with you?
I try to make myself responsive on all different platforms as we're supposed to. However, I am the most responsive to phone and email. I'll get messages on Facebook pretty often, and now messages on Instagram more and more often. And I have to, and this makes me sound like a very, very old millennial, but I'll have to set reminders, a calendar reminder. Check your inbox on
Wow.
Instagram and check your Facebook messages, because I typically don't ever receive those. And then every time I do, there's a list of people looking to get in touch. So phone, I'm still someone who, again, is probably very anti-millennial-esque, but I love getting on a phone call with somebody. So whether it's phone, text, or email, I am incredibly responsive. Even if it's, hey, I can't talk right now, but I'm available this time later today or this time tomorrow.
How bad do you really wish you still had a rotary phone hanging on the wall with a cord? Yeah. You do, don't you? I
I
th I think I got a new nickname for you. It's baby boomer living in a millennial body.
I know because I have the bone density of a 90-year-old woman. So these knees have pop locked and dropped it so much that they crack, snap, crackle, and pop now whenever I stand up. I would love to have a rotary phone and one of the old school benches that it was like a phone bench where you would sit there and you would take the notes. So yeah.
You ever thought about crocheting closing gifts?
I so yes, because I did it and the feedback wasn't great. So I had crocheted a
It
dish.
wasn't great. Screw
No,
them. I'd still do it. It's still unique.
I did. It was a rag, like a kitchen rag. And I asked them what their favorite colors were. And so I had the three different colors in there. And I spent a couple hours on it. And I was very proud of it. And I, of course, bought them soap to go with it. It was a set. It was a very nice presented set. And they kind of laughed. I'm like, oh, no, no, I made that. And I'm like, oh. And then I asked a couple months later, because I knew this person personally, hey, how was the rag working out? And they're like, oh, my husband, he didn't really realize what it was. And I'm like, he didn't realize it was a rag? If anything, you could have just like kept it out there so it looked nice. So that is also when I learned to try to not take things so personally.
Yeah.
But uh,
How about something that is like a house, and it would be really cool if it was like maybe the color scheme of that house. It's going to be
yeah,
hard, obviously, to and then like established in, and it's like something like a memento like that.
I love it. Or like a home sweet home, and I could just cross stitch
But
that.
if you make it personal, like Home Sweet Home is too generic.
But I have their address and a pic at their
Yeah,
house.
yeah, 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 and established in, yeah, I think that would be really neat.
You know what? We have the old souls because you like birds.
Yeah.
So you can't come after me for old lady
Oh,
stuff.
I'm not coming after you. I'm just
You've
like,
been obsessed with birds
I'm a
and
bird nerd.
squirrels
I have a
and
coffee cup that
marine.
says that actually. Yeah,
I don't doubt it.
I do. Yeah.
That's a great idea. You've always been so good with collaborating.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is great. So, what is that? What is that best way to contact you? What is that phone number? What is the email?
It's H Crew. Looks like Krug. I know it does, but it's Crew. H Crew, Krugh at usamortgage.com. And then my work number is 314-356-2896.
And if somebody just refuses to do it the old school way and they want to go find you on social and send you a DM, which by the way, I applaud you for that. Everyone should do that. If you're not used to going there regularly, you should set a reminder because there's opportunities happening in your DMs potentially every day. And so, where do they find you? Where's the best platform to connect with you on social or best platforms?
On my public, see how old I am. I'm like pulling the phone away, like, where am I? On my public Instagram, and my handle is home loans with hope, except it's home underscore loans underscore with underscore hope.
Awesome. Hope, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. This has been great. It's fun to have these conversations. Thank you for being a guest, and hope more people see this and realize, hey, she is my spirit sister or brother.
That's the hope. Thank you for hiring me so long ago to even get me into this industry.
You're welcome.